Welcome to the Feria Techcast. Here we bring you all things science, engineering, technology, and innovation. Today we are joined by Sachin Hiriyanna, a staff software engineer who has led major platform initiatives at companies like Navan. He's the kind of engineer who operates at the intersection of deep technical work and strategic leadership, having refactored core systems used by hundreds of thousands of users. His journey is unique, spanning from co-founding his own startup to now scaling world-class mobile platforms. In this episode, we'll dive into the reality of large-scale refactoring, building tools for other engineers, and the journey from writing code to leading technical strategies. So, Sachin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Asghar.
I
Thanks
am
for that
excited to
introduction.
have
That
you.
was amazing. Thank you.
All right, so let's dive in. Your career is a fascinating blend of a startup founder and a staff engineer at a major company like Navan. So, how did it all start? I mean, the journey for you, into the software engineering space. Where did it start from? What prompted you into this field, and how has it been since you ventured into it, and where has it gotten you to at the moment? So I'd like to get the whole backstory.
Yeah, absolutely. So I remember a couple of things from my childhood as to what shaped this whole journey of mine and how I actually became what I am today, which, I'm a staff software engineer. I work at Navan, which is a company based in Palo Alto. So I want to take us back to probably when I was, a little kid, probably when I was in primary school. I always had this kind of interest in um tinkering with the electrical or electronic components. So I got my first computer when I was in 8th grade. And coming from, a lower middle class family, getting a computer back in India, it was a big thing. But I was just fascinated by how computers work and what all things went into it, that it works that way. I was really, really kind of blown away by it. So I really wanted to find out what are some things that are inside it. So I got my first computer, which was a desktop computer, and then it had this big box CPU. So in the first month when I got the computer, the very first thing I did is I tried to, open the CPU box and try to kind of understand or just look at things, what all things in there. And so that was the kind of kid I was. There was always this curiosity as to when you see something that is working and solving a lot of problems or working really well in the world, like how, what is it made of, or how is it that is built, right? This was my childhood. Like I always also was tinkering with a lot of these electronic components, and I used to go buy resistor, capacitors. I remember this one summer when I got bunch of electronic components, and then I built a small radio transmitter myself, and I was kind of, it was fun. I was showing my neighbors how I can speak here, and then you can listen it on your radio. That was very cool. So that was the kind of background I came from. I always had this interest in technology, electronics, computers. And then after a few years, I decided to do my engineering in computer. So I did my bachelor's in India. During that time, me and my friend, then we came across an interesting problem where we wanted to solve. So that was the whole startup thing that I worked on before, was during my engineering days, where um, we found out there is no like a real channel where people who are looking for a job and people who are willing to refer them. Currently we have LinkedIn, but this was a long time ago. We didn't have LinkedIn then. That, it was not that popular, but it was then that, we wanted to kind of create a small platform where people who are looking to find jobs and people who are willing to refer to companies where they're working for these people, they can connect, they can try to understand each other, and then, make the referral if they feel like, it's a good fit, right? We try to build that. We did have an offer for getting seed funding. It was very cool. I was doing all the technical side of things, and I built an app, full stack app, back end, front end, everything for it. was very nice. We worked on it for like 9 months, and then we decided not to pursue it for so many reasons. But yeah, then I came to US to do my master's. And one of the reasons I came to US was not only to pursue masters, but I always had this notion of how all these big tech companies are built, and how Silicon Valley has evolved itself from basically nothing to becoming a superpower in technologies, where a lot of these innovative companies are coming and they're
Yeah.
very, very, very successful in the world. And I wanted to be closer to these companies and really, really understand like how these companies work, so that maybe in the future, maybe like 10, 20 years later, I don't know, or it could be sooner, that I can start my own company, makes a success, be successful that way. And then I came to US. I did my master's. In my master's, I also wrote a thesis, and I had developed a website along with that thesis. That was a very interesting journey. I did my master's in software engineering. So this thesis and the website that I worked on was something called drughelp.care, which in the state of Ohio, we found out one of the biggest cause for uh, deaths was around that time, almost a decade ago, was drug overdose deaths. And we found out these deaths were happening usually because people who were victims of it, they go to a hospital or the healthcare center. They kind of, it was a trouble for them to get admitted to this hospital, because they have to match so many criterias. Like if you're pregnant, then you can't go to that hospital, or if you have this condition, then you can't go to this hospital. So by the time you go to hospital and then you are requesting to get admitted there, they won't admit you. They will send you somewhere else. And by the time you get to a hospital where they would admit you, then it would be too late. So I worked with 3 other professors at the university, Cleveland State University. We professors, they researched the problem and they found out we have to do something about it. And then I did the technology side of it to build the website drughelp.care, where anybody who is a victim of this kind of thing, they would go to the website, they would enter the criteria that they would fall into, and then find the healthcare facility closest to them that they would be admitted to. So it was a very interesting project that I worked on and wrote a thesis on. It's still live, hopefully saving a lot of lives in the state of Ohio. And after I graduated, I passed on that project to the current students. Then I think so many students are still working on it in the university. Yeah, so that was my master's journey, and then after I did my master's, I moved to Southern California from Ohio, where I started my career as a software engineer intern at a fintech startup. And yeah, I've been working in software as a software engineer. Started off with an intern, then I became a software engineer. Then I worked for this company called Ernie, which was a fintech company. Very interesting journey. I was the 5th or 6th person to join the startup. It was a very early stage, and I got to work very closely with the founders of the company. And we saw the startup grow from 5, 6 people to 30, 35 people. And then the business-wise also was doing very good. Just to tell you a little bit about the startup that I worked there. The startup name was called Ernie, which was a fintech startup.
Mm.
Financial technology, is where it was an app. Basically, the users would, sign up on the app, and then they would link their credit card and retailer accounts. So what it was doing is, let's say you buy a TV on Walmart for $500, but then
Yeah.
in 15 days, because of Black Friday, if the price drops to $400, then you can claim for the refund of the price difference that
Mm.
the price dropped. So there was a concept called price protection policy, and a lot of retailers and credit card companies had this, and but a lot of users were not taking advantage of it. So we built the software. We had the backend bots that was checking price every minute, and as soon as there was the price drop, and as soon as it met the criteria for us to go claim it, it would automatically go fill up the claim forms and everything, and then claim the refund. And the users were getting the refunds by surprise. Like caught a lot of the users with surprise. It was a very nice, very exciting journey. We generated millions of dollars in refunds in a span of 3 years, and then COVID hit. A lot of things changed, and then I moved on to another company called Shell Recharge. Shell Recharge was a EV charging infrastructure company where the company itself was providing infrastructure for anybody who wants to set up, EV charging stations, right? So I was working there for 3 years or so. And then I moved to the company that I'm working for right now. It's called Navan, which is a corporate expensing and corporate travel software company. It's based in Palo Alto.
Mm.
I work in the platform team as a staff software engineer. And it's been an amazing journey. I just love that I got a chance to work with really, really smart people. And this is what I wanted to do. And I'm very happy that I'm on path to achieving what I wanted to be.
Great, great, great. Sachin, that is indeed an incredible journey. So, for you, what felt like a bigger leap of faith? Starting your own company or, taking on the responsibility of refactoring a core platform used by hundreds of thousands of people?
So currently what I'm focused on is to really provide a great user experience for the end users. So in this case, at the company that I work for, which is Navan, we have an Android app that is used by over 100,000 users, I believe. And at Platform, what we do is to really look at the code base for Android project, for example, look at it in a way that how can we make this code base maintainable, testable, so that any new features that we introduce doesn't break other features that are already existing. Or if we need to fix a bug, instead of taking days, it would only take a few hours, right? So these are the kind of things that we do at Platform Team, is to really increase the maintainability and to bring about all the solid principles is a good way to put it. So if you are aware, in software engineering, we have something called solid principle, separation of concerns, open close principle, list call substitution principle, all this, which is an acronym for solid, is to try to enforce this, try to do a lot of refactoring in the code base to bring on these changes so that we set up the code base that are not easy to break, that are kind of defensive for the bugs and things like that. And recently I worked on a project where, so Navan Android app, it used to be two different apps, actually. Just a couple of years ago, we had a separate travel app that was letting corporate travel, folks to book their travel. And then we had a separate app for expensing, for folks to upload their receipts and then, flag the transactions and things like that, or request for reimbursement. So a couple of years ago, we merged these two big apps into a single app, which is the Navan app now. And that was one of a project that I worked on, where merging two different apps, which was already too big by itself, into this huge single code base, was one of the projects that I have worked on in my career, where we saw a lot of novel problems to deal with. And one of the issues was we got the apps merged, and we actually wrote a blog post about it. It's out there and on the Navan Tech blog. People can go check it out. But one of the interesting problem that came about was we were dealing with two different dependency injection frameworks. So Travel app was using something called Coin, which is a dependency injection framework in Android, and Expense app was using Hilt, which is another type of dependency injection framework. And when we merged the apps, we had to, because of the time frame constraints and whatnot, we had to make sure that these two frameworks work together seamlessly, because it's a single app, single code base and everything. So we built the bridge, we made them work together. But then in the long run, and this is what Platform Team was focused on, was to try to optimize this in a way that we don't have to deal with two different frameworks, have folks learn two different frameworks, or if there is any issues, then we would still have to, go back and fix in two different places. Instead of doing all these things, we decided to do the unification. So let's pick one of these framework and then migrate the other one to this. So that's what we did. And this was one of the large migration project that I led, is to migrate all the code that was using Coin dependency injection framework into using Hilt. So just to give a little bit details or introduction on what a dependency injection is in software engineering, right? So for anybody who is watching who is not into software engineering, dependency injection is very important for making your softwares work in a way that is separated, modular, and also to make sure these software are testable, right? Software classes are testable. So we have n number of classes in software, but then these classes depend on some other classes, which we inject them. The proper way to inject them so that we can test this specific class is what is a concept of dependency injection, is we inject them during compile time or runtime so that for testing purposes, we can inject a mock or fake implementation into these classes that makes the class testable. And when we make the class testable, then we can write unit tests. That means we can make sure our software is free of bugs, right? And that's the whole point. That's why we use dependency injection, and it is very standard that we use dependency injection framework in any big software. And so that was one of the big projects that we worked on at Platform, which went very well. We have written a blog post on it as well. So recently, one other project that we worked on, which took a few months for the team, was, we in the code base, we had a specific library that we were using to store the data, right? If you think of any app, in our case, Navan app, we have to persist some data in the app. So that means when you're not connected to internet, or if the internet is, kind of laggy, we need to make sure that the data is persisted in the device so that you can still use the app. And this is why we use the data storage. So in the code base, in the project, we were using a specific library, which was called ObjectBox. And that was causing some issues for us. It didn't really work out very well for us. But then this ObjectBox was, it's been there for a long time, since the start of the company, since we had, started building the app probably from 2016, 2017. It was there for a very long time. So we had a lot of legacy code to deal with. So we kind of audited as to what all features were using this ObjectBox storage. And if we were to remove this, then what would it take, right? So we planned it very methodically in a way that we, kicked off a spreadsheet and then listed all the features that we're using ObjectBox. And then we were thinking about, if we replace this ObjectBox thing, which is a type of storage mechanism for this specific feature, then what would we replace it with, right? So we first did the audit, and then we came up with this huge list of things with a goal in mind to completely eliminate ObjectBox out of the code base and then use more modern type of storages that is standard for Android apps, which is using something like Room database, which is a type of relational database made for Android mobile apps. Or using simple shared preferences, which, for things like that are only key value pairs, you wouldn't need to create a row or table in the Room database. You would simply use key value pairs. So what we did is we took a holistic look at all the features that were using ObjectBox, and then these object boxes, which were so many entities, similar to, in Room database or relational database, you would call a certain table, right? In the world of ObjectBox, you would call that as an entity, which is a complex object, basically a nested object in the features. So these ones, we started looking at each and every one, and then we mapped out, okay, so if we're going to eliminate ObjectBox from this feature, we're going to use, Room database for this. Or we're going to use shared preferences for this specific feature. So that's what we did. By the end of the audit, we had like 80 plus entities that we had to migrate. And then we were a team of 10 or 11. The Android team itself, we had 10 or 11 members. And we went about dividing this whole project into 4 phases. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. So how I led this project was, the first phase, I made sure that we have only simple tasks just to So I think the phase one was more of elimination, right? Because there were so many instances in the features where we found out, okay, it was using object box, it was trying to cache something for the user in the app, but then in the end, we were not really using it. So the solution for that was to just clean it up and not persist anything. So the phase one items were mostly those to just clean it up. And it's not really migration, but just clean it up, clean up all the object boxes that we really don't need or we don't really use to the full extent. So that was a phase one. And the goal for that was have the team members to claim to the idea, to understand what we are trying to do, but then also get acquainted with doing this task in a way that first doesn't break anything, because we had to set up a process. Once we migrate a certain object box to, or we eliminate it or migrate it, we put up a PR, right? A team member would put up a PR, and then we would ask the team to run end-to-end test. So luckily, we had 400, 500 end-to-end tests that runs every day, which is an automated test, which runs on the app in the cloud for each and every feature, critical feature that has to be working, right? So a team member puts up a PR, and then a team member, before merging the PR, would run this end-to-end test suite, make sure it has not broken anything, and then it's good to go. So I wanted people to get acclimed to this idea. First of all, why we are doing this, what is the end goal, and then what is the right process to do this so that we will not have any destruction in the processes and in the feature development or the product timeline, right? So that's what we did. So phase one was all about that. And phase two, it was incrementally a little bit more complicated task that we took on, where it's not only elimination now, it's more of a migration, but migration of small objects. So that's how I divided into 4 phases, and incrementally it was increasing in complexity. And I think this was the first time where I led a large scale software migration like that. And then having over 10 people involved in the project. And then I'm happy about the result. Yeah, I think everything went seamlessly. We did have few hiccups where we learned some edge cases where we were not able to migrate from a specific version of Room to another version because there were some mismatch. So these kind of things were very good learning for all of us. So we had a separate channel where in the Slack, for example, where I was constantly communicating, ensuring all the team members are on page with any positives or negatives in the whole project. And by the end of it, it went very well, and the project was a success.
Sachin, that was elaborate and very insightful. So, for the engineers listening who aspire to reach a staff level, what is a misconception about the job, and what part of the role is less about brilliant code and more about something else?
Yeah, that's a great question. As long as you're a mid-level engineer or senior level, as you said, they would be dealing code a lot, right? You would be assigned a certain project, and then you are expected to deliver a feature, built, tested, and all those things. But when it comes to staff engineering, when you are a staff engineer, and what would you do, right? What would you do differently? Well, first of all, to grow from senior to staff, it's not that you would have to do something differently after you become staff, but you should already be doing some things differently as a senior level to get promoted to staff. It's very important, right? The way to look at this is, up until senior, you are dealing with projects that are well structured, well defined, and all the things that are just given to you, and they would ask you to build it or fix it, etc. But then when it comes to staff, it's more not well formed, right? You would have to go discover and then brainstorm with a team, with the team A, team B. You have to reach out to multiple teams, and you have to reach out to multiple people. Try to solidify or try to form the idea for what you would build, right? Is also a responsibility that you would take on. So I think that's the main point. The more you try to practice it by kind of talking to multiple teams and trying to do things in a way that are methodical. I would say you go ask questions to a specific team that, hey, I'm looking for this, and what is your opinion? So these are the kind of questions that you would ask different teams to kind of collectively receive all kind of feedback and then holistically look at everything before you form the requirements. So that's the difference. So the requirements or the things that you would build will not be given to you, but rather you have to discover, and then you have to do the research and do the homework to come up with it yourself. So that's the important part. Another side of it is you have to take initiations. So it's not that the company would come and ask you to do this specific thing every single time. I mean, as a senior, probably that is something that you would expect. But as a staff, you should be constantly looking out for the product, for the users. Really, really give importance to that in a way that you're very proactive. You would guess in a few months, the specific things will become obsolete, and that will affect us. One of the example is I work with a coworker who's amazing. So he was a staff engineer before, but I just want to give a quick example as to what he did that is staff level, right? Before anybody brought this up, I think in the month of February, I believe February or March he brought this point up saying that, hey, Android is bringing this change in their ecosystem, in the upcoming operating system version, is where they will start blocking the apps if we don't support 16 kilobyte page sizes. So 16 KB page size is a memory page size that we have to support as an application. That means our application, whatever features or services that we are using and all the libraries that we are using in the application has to be using or supporting 16 kilobyte page size. So traditionally, everything was using 4 kilobytes, but Android has upgraded that 4 KB to 16 KB. So that will improve the speed and everything. But it's an implication that was proactively discovered by him 6 months ago. So that puts us in a position like, okay, so what do we have to do, right? The very first thing we did is like we broke down or we listed down all the things that we need to migrate from using 4 KB to 16 KB. And then there were some libraries that we have to completely remove it. So when it comes to removing libraries, it's not that easy, right? We have to rethink about the features and we have to find a replacement for the libraries in that case. Otherwise, the features wouldn't work. Discovering these kind of problems proactively months ago had put us in a position where, okay, now we can plan, we can execute, and then we can fix this before the time comes. So November 1st is the deadline. So we still have 15 days, but we have already migrated everything to using 16 KB. So that means we are good. So this is one good example.
Great. So, in your work, which spans from building scalable platforms to mentoring the next generation, what does the word innovation truly mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to tell you in 2014 to 2016, when I was still in, my engineering, when I was still doing my bachelor's in engineering, I created an innovation and incubation lab, I would call it. It was called as We Innovate It. This was back in the university where I really wanted to create a small platform where all the like-minded students who were studying engineering would come together and build something meaningful. So I created that, and it is still there. After I graduated, I passed it on to my then students, and then they are still continuing to recruit people, smart people in the university, and then they are forming group, doing all kinds of events and doing all kinds of projects, etc. So the reason I named it as We Innovate It, right, is because what I think an innovation is something where you would solve a problem, right? First of all, you have to discover a problem. And then for that, you need, of course, it could be something that you may be going through, or it may be something that your close ones are going through, or it could be something that you notice in the world. It could be any of those. So discovering a problem is the first step. And once you discover a problem, then you have to think about solutions to fix it. Now, solution to fixing it, there are many solutions for a specific problem that you can have. But innovation is this process of solving a problem, but have the solution that is so elegant that is something that is actually applicable, right? Like for a specific problem, you may find a solution that it may not be, it may solve the problem, but then it may not be practical, right? In that case, it may not be a good innovation. But I think in my mind, an innovation is something that is a process of solving a problem and reaching the solution, a solution that is so elegant and that is so applicable. That is something that you can apply. And entrepreneurship is all about this, is you're constantly innovating, you're constantly solving problems. But the most important part is you solve the problem and the solution that you find is scalable, is repeatable, then you can build a business out of it, is what I think is innovation.
Great one. So, finally, for our listeners who want to connect with you and follow your work and, generally just get insights from you daily, what's the best place for them to find you online and connect?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn. They can search by my name, Sachin Hiriyanna, or they can find the link below. We can plug in the link of my LinkedIn. They can follow me there. I also, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I do post some posts about engineering, career, etc. And then, yeah, you can send me a message on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. That would be a great channel to connect.
Sachin, it's been a really insightful conversation with you, and I'm excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much,